looking here at the breakaway. It's only just this moment gone. There's been a flurry of activity towards the last 10 or 15 kilometres of the race. And looking over his shoulder here, Benoit Poilvet, Crédit Agricole. They could do with a nice result right now because they've seen a lot of their riders who have left the team this year continue with their winning ways. Interesting, Paul. Paolo Bettini seems to be saving himself for Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He simply stopped by the roadside, didn't seem too concerned, and climbed off.
It's always been the problem with Flèche Walloon, caught in between two big classics. A lot of occasions, riders who want to go on and try and win Liège-Bastogne-Liège don't want to try too hard in the middle of the week because they feel that it takes too much out of the body. It is, after all, a very difficult bike race, and we saw just a few moments ago Paolo Bettini turn around with a couple of his teammates and ride back towards the town of Huy. I think that's also the difficult thing about having these circuits as well, because every time the riders go through the finishing time, they must think there's a warm and beckoning hot shower for them, and they came through the town of Huy after 62 kilometres and 102 kilometres, and they're now out on the last lap. But I have noticed that both Floyd Landis and Tyler Hamilton have been exceptionally aggressive in this race.
Yes, and keeping their eye on all of the moves. There you have 75 kilometres to go. Kurt Asel-Arvidsson, you may remember, he won the stage of the Giro d'Italia last year when he rode for the Fatka team, which is now no longer, unfortunately. He's found himself a berth on CSC, which had that wonderful start to the year. But the man that really did kick them into the high spots with a win in the Tour of the Mediterranean and in Paris-Nice, Yatsky, he's now out for a while because he had a bizarre crash just before the Amstel Gold Race, breaking his elbow when he was in collision while warming up the day before the race with a rider from the Quick-Step team. This is Poilvet, and there's Liberty Seguros also looking for a result to get this team underway this year too. Jan Ruska tried to cross the gap on his own here.
He's a strong bike rider, a very good individual time trialist. If they give him a couple of 100 metres advantage over the main field, he's a difficult man to pull back into the fold. I think we will see, as we get closer to the very difficult climbs towards the end, a general acceleration at the front end of the main field. One man who has been very aggressive, in fact, is the teammate of Kurt Asel-Arvidsson, Michele Bartoli. He's been on the attack several times, looking for some kind of move to try and get himself off the front. He, in fact, enjoys this kind of terrain, and he's been very successful in the Ardennes in the past.
Well, this is the circuit the riders always seem to wait characteristically for the real showdown on this last big lap of some 98 kilometres. They've seen the climb twice. There was a small breakaway up at the second time of 9 riders, but they were right on them as soon as they came over the summit, and then the counter-attack started. It was soon after the life got a little bit rough out in the peloton that Paolo Bettini decided enough was enough. He had a warmer top over his Italian jersey today, are clearly using this race for the best part of 100 kilometres of training. Just 17 seconds for the two leaders, Ruska still in between.
Well, the man who'll take advantage of today, if he can get himself a win, was right on the front there in the white and blue jersey. Frank Vandenbroucke had some excellent season success at the start of this season, rode a very good Paris-Nice, and I think he's moving himself back up to the top of the international ladder. He's had a lot of controversy surrounding his career over the last couple of years, and I think right now he's trying to prove himself for one last time, and these classics certainly suit his kind of riding style.
Well, he certainly rode well in Paris-Roubaix, first attempt for him there, but he was unlucky to puncture near the end. But then didn't they all that mattered? Look at Peter van Petegem and Johan Museeuw. Johan Museeuw now finished with the sport of racing, and it's probably in the following car today as he gets used to his new role with the team. Well, there's plenty of men trying to soften this race up by tradition. Stefan Westermann not here, by the way, the World Cup leader. He's holding off his form until Sunday. He's never ridden Liège-Bastogne-Liège with any success, but he's hoping that he can put in a performance there to take his World Cup leader's jersey into the first mid-spring recess, if you like, before it resumes after all of the tours. Now, Jan Ullrich, in fact, it's Westermann who has told me that he believes Jan Ullrich has very good form and is taking no notice of the criticism being levelled at him. Today might be a good tester for him, and maybe we'll get a chance to see it for ourselves.
Well, it's a good job he's got a pretty hard skin, because he's been criticised a lot over the last couple of years about his eating habits through the winter season. I think Jan Ullrich, as Lance Armstrong has always said, is one of the most talented bike riders in the sport. He's exceptionally strong, and if he doesn't beat Lance Armstrong this year, I'm quite convinced that if he can keep himself together, he will win the Tour de France again sometime in the future.
We're about 8 kilometres from the climb of the Côte de Paille at the moment, as the riders head towards the province of Namur. Not too far away where the Tour de France will be held, based in Namur and Liège. in the high summer where it'll make its start this year. A counter-attack going off the front, the Pont de Bon. Beautiful area this, by the way, for cycling, as always, in this part. Totally different to the Flemish region. We're now in the Walloon region. The national language here of Belgium is French rather than Flemish. As the riders, MrBookmaker.com here, Erwin Thijs, haven't seen too much of him this year. It's a regular attacking mode for him at this stage of a bike race.
Certainly is. This team has been fairly successful since the start of the year, though, because the British national champion Roger Hammond finished well up in third place in Paris-Roubaix. And I think the team is looking to get themselves some fine performances in a classic like this. And they've got one or two riders who could really do fairly well on a race like the Flèche Walloon. I would say the best man in the group is Kurt van der Wouwer. He's ridden very well in the Flèche Walloon before, but this, I think, is very much more of a publicity attack than anything else.
Well, you can't blame him for that. You never know what happens when you put your head out front. 71 kilometres to go now at Pont de Bon. And that means we're just 6 kilometres away from the top of the Côte de Paille. We'll be in the village of Paille in just about 5 kilometres time. The two leaders, Benoit Poelweg, I beg your pardon, and Kurt Assel Arvesen, the Norwegian rider on CSC now. We're not seeing much of Jan Ruske, so I've got a feeling he's been trapped and brought back into the bunch. Well, that's a very typical land set here, as we see the riders on long, straight, rolling roads, very well serviced roads. Spring trying to break through. The forecast for Liège-Bastogne-Liège is rather a good one, and that we should see a good race down there. There's the famous chateau here at Modave. And it really is a spectacular region, especially if you're a touring cyclist, because the roads, once you're off these main drags, are narrow, twisting, pretty steep climbs. A very nice cycling countryside. Poelweg flying the colours of CNA, and one has to feel that Stuart O'Grady, who left them this year to join Cofidis, must be regretting that move just now, because the Australian embroiled in the doping controversy within that team, and of course can't have possibly anything to do with it because he wasn't even on the team during the period of the allegations that are being made. 70 kilometres to go, nosing away, 30 seconds, and it looks as though Erwin Thijs is now in between.
Well, it's a pity for one or two of the riders who moved across to that team, especially the current world champion, Igor Astroloa, who this last year was a winner of Flèche Walloon, and I wonder if that thought is going through his mind at the moment, that what did they get themselves involved in? I don't think there was systematic doping involved in the team, but the team have made the decision themselves to just get away from the sport until they can make their own investigations and try and clear up their name. It has all actually gone very quiet just now. We're not really hearing very much news filtering through at all about the Cofidis affair. And I wonder if we'll see them on the roads again. They need to start racing quite soon, otherwise they're certainly not going to be prepared for the Tour de France.
Well, they seem to have taken the decision to forget the Spring Classics, which has rather upset both Astroloa and O'Grady, because they're men of the Classics. So maybe they'll come back when the racing in small stage races start in France in June. Well, this is should be Ruska trying to get up to the leaders, but you can throw a blanket right across the whole lot of them just now. In fact, this is a different rider here who's trying to bridge the gap, because this is Nick Noyens of the Quickstep. Such similar colours, Quickstep and MrBookmaker.com. But Nick Noyens is about to reach Erwin Thijs, and if he does, it'll be 2 on 2. It looks as though Thijs himself almost bridged the gap up to Poelweg and Arvesen.
Get a chance to see just how difficult this part of Belgium is. Everyone regards Belgium as being a very flat country. Well, down in the south in the Ardennes, it really is not that at all. It climbs up to around about 800 meters in some parts, and during the winter months you can get an awful lot of snow in this area. The two leaders, in fact, Phil, are not really very far off the front end of the main field, and in fact you can see Erwin Thijs has made the junction with the two leaders, and it's about to be a four-man leading group, because Noyens too has come across that gap, which is still not very much more than about 15 seconds.
So we've got Benoit Poelweg, Kurt Assel Arvesen, Nick Noyens and Erwin Thijs, the four leaders now. So there's a little carrot now for the field to start chasing down. You can see just how similar those two colours are right now, and that'll cause confusion as the time goes on this season, I think. There's the four for you. 4 different countries, except that 2 from Belgium rather. There's the long empty road, so it's not very far, and these riders won't be on the handlebars of most of the favourites. They won't be counting these chaps as likely winners, except they'll have to watch out, I think, for Arvesen. He's a very strong rider. When he won that stage in the Tour of Italy last year, when he was champion of Norway, he rode a brilliant race that day and was a well-deserved winner.
I think Arvidsson really is there to take the pressure off Michele Bartoli, who seems to be in pretty fine form as well this afternoon. He's been on the attack on a number of occasions, and he's looking for a break, and I think the break will come once we get into the hilly section of this final circuit here around Huy, a circuit which is around about 98 kilometers, and it has the majority of climbs concentrated in the last 50 kilometers of racing.
12-8, the Frenchman in the breakaway. He's 27 years of age these days, and pro. It's his 4th season, but he's never won a bike race. But in fairness, he has always been a great aggressive cyclist. Now a counter move, Bradley McGee on the left of our picture there. Nice to see him. He's had a bit of a downside. He hasn't really got himself going obviously this year, although he's certainly got his track form.
Certainly has excellent track form, and I think he'll be thinking along towards the Olympic Games in the month of August, and it's going to be rather interesting to watch the Tour de France and see how many of these riders will possibly this year use it as preparation for the Olympic Games in Athens. You can see now a lot of the big names are starting to be very aggressive. They're starting to get themselves up there, and they're starting to get themselves in a situation where they're looking for moves to go across, and you keep repetitively seeing that very dark blue jersey of the US Postal Service, and that is Floyd Landis, who looks to me today, Phil, as if he too is a man on a mission to try and get himself a victory.
Well, it'd be great to see Floyd. He's been right up amongst it all year. He's got good early form, and he doesn't want his top form just now because he's bound to be called to the side of Lance Armstrong again a little later on. Armstrong currently racing in the Tour of Georgia. First stage was yesterday, and looking for perhaps not a major result there, but certainly confirmation for himself that he is on course for the great Tour de France in the summer. We'll see.
Well, the four-man group seems to have lost a bit of its impetus here. Poilvé going to the back of the group, trying to force the other two riders to come forward and set the pace making, and that's not a very intelligent thing to do, because the two guys who have just made the junction, they need a breather for a kilometre or so before they can catch their breath back and get themselves into a situation where they're prepared to then start contributing to the success of this move. I do think, though, that as we go down this 10% decline, we'll see an acceleration coming from the main field, because the first climb of the day is not all that difficult, but it's a strategic one, because if you don't start it in the right position, you'll find yourself getting left behind by a lot of riders who are already under pressure.
And the pace has been very high today, the average speed of 43 kilometers an hour. That's moving. So they've come away from Charleroi at high speed, heading in that almost dead straight easterly direction to the town of Huy. This is the bottom of the climb now. It's not a long climb, it's only a kilometre, but it might give a springboard to somebody to jump away. As these are the leaders, Arvidsson, Poilvé, Nick Nuyens and Erwin Thijs. The strongest man on the climb might well be Poilvé, sitting there at the back, and there's a whole group joined behind now, as we now have 3 riders coming on, including Bradley McGee, by the look of it.
Well, Brad McGee has been very attentive. You can see him there in second position in the fdjeux.com jersey. As again, you see, as we start to get closer to Paillet, this is the climb the riders will be facing. It's the 5th climb of the day. It kicks up at 10%. It's about 1.1 kilometre long and climbs up 63 meters. The average grade is only 5.7, but it's initially a very good point to see if the legs are responding.
Well, the legs certainly responding here by Alexander Kolobnev, who is a rider who finished 5th in this race last year. It's so strange how the boys who've tasted success in an event seem to be able to turn it on when they come back to it again. Kolobnev now launching an attack there for Domina Vacanzi. As the breakaway has swelled quite considerably here now, but the arrival of Kolobnev and certainly McGee is making it very, very interesting, the move now. There's the original breakaway, joined there by Ramirez, Thijs and McGee. Looking further down, Genti, he has also come up, the Italian here. That's an interesting move.
He's a good man to get into a breakaway like this, and he'll take a lot of pressure off his team. As we look a little bit further down, here's the big figure of Axel Merckx on the front end of the main field. He's always enjoyed the Ardennes Classics, and this on the left-hand side is Michele Bartoli. He's looking very aggressive. I think he's looking for the win here this afternoon, but he's going to the front a long way out, because we're still around about 65 kilometers to go to the finish, which is around about 1.5 hours of racing.
Yes, but now's the time the foundations can be laid if they're not vigilant at this moment, because McGee, and it's nice to see Brad McGee getting himself into this move here, indicating that maybe he is finding his form. He had a very good World Cup round on the track in Manchester to make sure he was qualifying for the Olympic Games. And here is a man now who's planning both the Tour of Italy, the Tour de France and the Olympic Games, and wants to be on top form for all of them. That is a really tough call.
It's a tough call, but his team in the past have ridden a fair amount of success in the Giro d'Italia. Marc Madio believes it's an ideal preparation for the Tour de France, and over the last couple of years the Giro d'Italia has not been as hard as it has in the previous seasons, and we've seen a return to the kind of racing in the Giro that they had many years ago, when they ride fairly easily for the first 40 or 50 kilometers and then really accelerate a lot towards the end. But here you can see the main field at the Flèche Walloon is really starting to stretch out into a very long line, indicating the pressure is being put on at the front by a lot of the big names trying to reduce the numbers in what is still a very large peloton.
Yes, there's still a chance for a good shakeout here, but I think they've sensed that the attacks which have been started here by Poelve and Arvidsson might develop into something. And the pace is very much on here, as the wind keeps them pinned over to the right-hand side of the road. All hands just following the wheel in front to see what happens. Will the elastic stretch too much, or will indeed it all come back together again? There's the breakaway just in the distance. Oh, heavens above, that's the whole long line of cyclists. I'm not sure the breakaway's even there now.
Well, I think we're cruising through the main field here to see if we can catch a glimpse of Jan Ullrich, because a lot of people have felt that Jan Ullrich will be looking for a performance here this afternoon. And I would think also Tyler Hamilton, Levi Leipheimer and of course Floyd Landis too are in with the chance of getting themselves a win here this afternoon. There's the leader of the US Postal Service, Jose Acevedo, given the number 71 here. And I think he's going to prove to be an excellent addition to the team when we go into the mountainous races a little bit later on in the season.
Echevarria taking them through in the long line. They're all looking as though they're under pressure here, concentrating pretty hard just now, as we see the US Postal boys continue to go through as well. Caught sight there of Jurgen van den Broek sitting near the front, another one of the new Belgian boys on the US Postal team. Into the province du Namur now, which puts us 62 kilometers from the finish. That's about 39 miles of actual racing to go, and still no decisions. But the big hills are still ahead of the riders now. McGee still under pressure here with Javier Ramirez, but I think it's all about to come back together, and it's going to be the status quo back here in the Flèche Walloon, with everything to race for, as they say. So as we continue then, the loops now around the Huy. This is the final circuit, and looking out at the peloton, they're all together at the moment, thinned out quite a lot. We did lose Paolo Bettini, who decided to retire not long after passing through Huy, probably training for Liège-Bastogne-Liège. We've had a breakaway of 7, which has just this moment been caught. Bradley McGee was part of it, so too was Kolobnev, the Russian rider, who was 5th in this event last year. And at Liberty Seguros, no flags to fly for them yet this year. Javier Ramirez is down there in the thick of the action. But basically, they've got around about 38 miles still to ride. That's just on 60 kilometers to go. And all of the little nasty climbs towards the end still in front of them, Paul.
I think what's interesting over the last few kilometers, we've seen an awful lot of Tyler Hamilton at the front end of the main field, and Floyd Landis, who both look very good this afternoon in the Flèche Walloon, and I think we'll be looking for some kind of a result. We're looking at around about 62 kilometers to go, but it's in this last section now that the majority of the climbing is very much concentrated. Again, it's an acceleration on the front end of the main field. These are little flurries of activity, as we see here the new team Brioche La Boulangere's colours as well. A lot of teams this year have changed their colours completely through the winter season, and they'll be wondering, I think, Phil, what is going to happen to their man Yoshiba Boloki, who moved across, and I think he's having a very hard time getting himself back into form, and I think we may not even see him riding the Tour de France, as Jérôme Pinault is taking up the colours on the front end for France.
61k to go. Jérôme Pinault trying a tentative now, but nobody seems to be getting anywhere just at the moment. A little bit of a tenacious bunch, like it was in the Amstel Gold Race. Getting near the end, there were still 100 riders in the action there until the final flurry of attacks came. This is the town of Avellange. We're now in the province of Namur, the area where the Tour de France will be with us in July this year, the first couple of days. And the next sort of climb of note, probably the Côte de Coutis, which is still about 20 kilometres, about 12 miles ahead. And I'm wondering if we're going to see ending of Jan Ullrich. You haven't seen him at all yet. Sergei Ivanov is the telecom T-Mobile rider rather there, who's got tremendous form this year. This is Jérôme Pinault, another man who's changed teams, but he's now riding with the new colours here of the Brioche La Boulangère.
Just a small advantage, 12 seconds. These riders have around about a 15-kilometre ride on the flat before they come to the next serious climb of the day, and that is the Côte de Coutis, and that comes at 42 kilometres to go. But even though those are the categorised climbs in this part of Belgium, there's no such thing as any flatland at all. In fact, I don't think there's any flat part of the course now on the run down towards the finish line in Huy.
No, and the riders know that. That's why they've had just the usual early attacks being brought back as they raced in easterly direction into Huy on the first stretch of 62 kilometres. Up the hill they went. Second time up the climb to complete a 40-kilometre lap. There was just 9 guys in front, but you could reach them with your hands. They were brought back. Now we're on the third and final lap, and there really is everything to race for right here as we watch the Flèche Walloon. The one rider at the front here is Jérôme Pinault, 18 seconds. You have to start somewhere. He's got the big chainring rolling now, and he's picking up a nice wind just at the moment. What wind there is blowing today. It is a fairly warm day, although overcast. The weather for the weekend ahead, and Liège-Bastogne-Liège is good. And I would think we'll see a greening of the trees as spring continues here, right down deep in the bottom end of Belgium, in the Walloon area where the national language is French.
This youngster, just 24 years of age, will be trying to see if there's going to be any reaction in the main field. On the front here, a former national champion of France, Nicolas Vaugondy, is trying to get himself clear. All of these small attacks are really putting pressure on the main field. We've seen a lot of the big names attempt to get clear in the early part of this big loop, the 98-kilometre final loop around the town of Huy, but nothing really all that serious. I think the serious climbs, the serious attacks won't really start to come until we get to the Côte d'Arnère, which is around about 15 kilometres to go, and the Côte de Boisseau, which is at 30 kilometres to go. That's when the big men will come out and see if they can shed the men who have managed to stay on their slipstream for an awful long time. One name to throw into the midst, I think, is Eric Decker, who I've just seen riding at the back end of the main field, but he seems to be riding into some kind of form, having battled for 2 years to get himself back to the top of the sport after a very nasty leg break in Milan-San Remo 2 years ago.
The thing is that you never know which riders are in this event for training for the weekend and which guys want to win it. Remember last year, Igor Astelor became the first Spanish rider to win this event, and his next big win was the World Championship in Canada. And he would have loved to have tried to defend his lead, or his title rather, here, but he's planned the whole season around these spring classics, and they've all gone to the wall now because of the doping controversy within the Cofidis team. So he's on the sidelines. Rumour has it his agents are meeting with Lamprey, and in the next 48 hours or so we might hear news he's left Cofidis and has moved across to Lamprey, because they too are in something of a spot of bother, because Francesco Casagrande has a knee problem and he hasn't raced at all this year. And here we are looking at the main peloton here in Flèche Walloon, and Jérôme Pinault, I'm not too sure whether he's still in front, but if he is, it's by a handful of seconds. They seem to have this race very much under control as we're inside 60 kilometres to go.
The orange jerseys moving to the front of Levi Leipheimer's team. Leipheimer's had a very good start to the season with a win already under his belt on one of the most difficult stages of Semana Catalana. I think he too is the kind of rider who could come up with a performance in this race. It's always very difficult, bridged between two very difficult one-day World Cup classics. A lot of riders take this race seriously. Others don't really want to try too hard because they want to make sure that they've got all of their ability left when they go down to race at the weekend for the big Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And it's quite strange because over the last couple of years these have been completely changed around, these one-day classics, because it used to be Flèche Walloon followed by Liège-Bastogne-Liège and then a week's break before the Amstel. But the UCI, the international governing body, has changed that calendar around somewhat as we get a quick glimpse of the leader there, Jérôme Pinault. He's about 15, well, it's moved out to 25 seconds off the front end of the main field, but I don't think he's going to go too far because you can see the long line is very much stretched out and controlled by some pretty serious teams.
Pinault, 24 years of age now, but he's only in, funnily enough, his 3rd season as a pro. He's won races every year. This year will not be an exception. He's already had a victory in the Clásica de Almería, which is in Spain. And he's a tentative rider who goes out front and sees what happens. He could do with a bit of help right now, I think, because these long straight roads are really tough to battle against. There's McGee just wiping his nose there as he's going back down the field a little bit. Danish champion Nicky Sorensen always near the front. He's there as well. And a lot of work being done, especially by the Euskaltel-Euskadi team, because we're coming into their type of races now. And Paolo Bassoni also caught a glimpse of as well there.
A couple of riders at the front there for Chocolat Jacques as well, and I wonder if they're thinking about what is going to happen with their team, because they've actually been making moves to try and sign up David Moncoutier, who has made a statement just recently that he's going to hang fire and wait and try and stick it out and hope that his team, Team Cofidis, come back into action later on in this season. This is the lone leader at the moment, Jérôme Pinault, still just 26 seconds in front of the main field. 4 wins since he turned professional back in 2002. He's a young rider who in fact turned professional, having spent a long time riding for Jean-René Bernado's development team, the Vendée U, and when they moved across to become a professional team, Team Bonjour, he came alongside them and popped up with a win in his very first season in the Tour of Normandy. But this, I have to say, Phil, on the front now, is the team of the start of this year's season, Team CSC. And it's a team that I think will be looking to try and get Michele Bartoli a win, but Kelly just pipping in there into 3rd position, looking very attentive. Bobby Julich is not riding with them. He's had a great start to the season. He's riding on the other side of the Atlantic in the Tour of Georgia. And for the first time, there'll be a big showdown in the individual time trial there between Jens Voigt, Lance Armstrong and Bobby Julich. And it's a very long time trial too, 30 kilometers long. And we'll get a very good chance to see that on OLN, I think, sometime in the coming weeks. Yeah,
well, absolutely. And I'm delighted they've got a big bike race back in the States, because they've sadly missed the Tour du Pont, which was a superb race. This is threatening to go even bigger than that race was. And they've got Mario Cipollini riding there as well, who wants to do a bit of training away from the public eye. I don't think he'll be away from too many public eyes, because they'll love him in the States, and he'll have to turn on the style sooner or later. But the first stage has been won by Gordon Fraser, the Canadian sprinter. But I think we're going to see a battle there. I don't think Lance will be too happy. Bobby Julich gets a grip of the race lead, and the feelings will be pretty mutual. Anyway, back here with the Flèche Walloon, we're looking now at Jérôme Pinault, a rider who's just got those few wins under his belt Paul's told us about. His gap is stretching ever so slowly, out to 27 seconds now, so the field aren't too worried. CSC are the team driving at the front, which indicates to us perhaps Ivan Basso or Michele Bartoli are feeling good today, and it's time for a result. Remember that they are now without their star of the start of the season, Jörg Jatzki, because sadly he went out the day before the Amstel Gold Race when he collided with a rider on the Quick Step de Vitamin team while training, and he broke his elbow. That's really a bizarre crash, and we feel very sorry for him there, because these events, which have now come up, Amstel, Fleche and Liège, were on Jatzke's hit list.
They're certainly the sort of races where he could excel after a brilliant start to the season with wins in the Tour of the Mediterranean and Paris-Nice. And hopefully he'll get himself back and be on form when we come up to the Tour de France in the month of July. They've been an excellent team, Team CSC, since the start of the season, and I think they will be trying to set something up for Michele Bartoli. Now again, another acceleration coming off the front end of the main field, and this is from the Alessio team, already very successful this year in the one-day classics with a win in Paris-Roubaix, going to the big man, Big Maggie Backstead, with an unbelievable sprint on the stadium in Roubaix, and that wasn't too long ago. And
so shocked by his win, Paul. He's never raced since. But in fairness, I think he's taken time out.
Well, I think it was a superb performance by him, and many people think that a big man weighing in at 90 kilos did a very good job to get over those cobblestones without any damage at all. And he himself admitted he didn't even have one flat tyre, which unfortunately was not the case for the man I was rooting for in his last Paris-Roubaix, Johan Museo.
Yeah, very sad, but the Queen of the Classics has no friends, and no favourites either for that matter. But this is an attack by Alessio Bianchi and Christian Mereni. He was 7th in this race last year, and he's on this team, so I think he might, we expect something of a ride from him. But I'm not too sure who that guy is attacking. He's a tall guy, so it could be Ellis Rastelli. He's also riding pretty well at the moment.
Sitting at the back end of the field there for T-Mobile, I was interested to see Andries Kloden, a man who a couple of years ago promised to be a great star of the future and has really over the last couple of seasons appeared to be very quiet. I'm still looking to see if I can track down Jan Ullrich in this bunch, because everybody's saying that Jan Ullrich needs to come up with a performance, as again we can see the counterattacks coming thick and fast. This is a brand new young rider on the US Postal Service team, Jurgen van den Broek, and I have to say, Phil, I actually don't know very much at all about him.
But we will. As Jurgen van den Broek of Belgium starts now doing the work, and in fact it's Bertolini, the Alessio rider, who's gone away here. So that's going to, if these two can get across to Jérôme Pinault, then that will be a very interesting move, because two more teams at the front, especially as we've now got a man from US Postal bridging the gap. And a rider, to my knowledge, riding his very first Flèche Walloon here in Jurgen van den Broek. So there's the peloton. Still plenty of decisions to be made. Just working out what to do about things just now. As these two riders trying to work their way across. They've got across a gap of 25 seconds to the leader, Jérôme Pinault. And they're getting closer bit by bit. You never know. In a few minutes' time, they could be up with the leaders. And we'll know pretty soon, I suspect. As the helicopter pans back from those two, there's the peloton. Now a little flurry of attacks coming, which is interesting.
Well, we're getting closer and closer to the next big climb of the day, and that is the Côte de Coutis, and that's rather a difficult climb, but what it does is it sets the riders up for the next climb, which follows it by just 4 kilometers, the Côte de Bel Air. Van den Broek was a young rider who was just a youngster. And last year he raced very well with the amateurs, getting himself 3 wins, and no relative at all to Frank van den Broek. And in fact he won last year the Triptych of the Mountains, which is in the southern part of Belgium, and he's I think just coming up to 21 years of age.
That's right, 21 years of age. Didn't get any results after May last year, but obviously impressed Johan Bruneel, and now he's put him up in this group here. So the riders continue on, 54 kilometers to go at Jalais, and the road's got a little bit more narrow. There is Pinault, here comes the cavalry. Soon we're going to have 3 riders in the front at 50 kilometers to race.
Well, if Van den Broek did ride well in the Triptych du Mont last year, it will indicate that he's a pretty good bike rider in these undulating parts of the world.
There's the peloton in search of 53. Looking down with 53 kilometers to go on the peloton, Alessandro Bertolini and Jurgen van den Broek have just joined Jérôme Pinault, so they're looking at around about those 53 kilometers to survive now. Van den Broek, who is the new boy on the block for US Postal, 3 wins last year, just 21 years of age. What a start he's got on the same team as Lance Armstrong. Hasn't taken him long to put his nose out front either. It's a nice move. Here they come. It's Bertolini setting the pace for Alessio. There is Van den Broek. Bertolini, a win this year already in the Tour of Lucca in Italy, and a pretty solid rider, the most experienced man in the breakaway. He's been a pro for 10 seasons, I think.
10 years, and in fact it was a few years ago, back in '97, he was very successful here in Belgium because he actually won Paris-Brussels, and almost every year since he turned professional back in 1994 he's come up with a victory somewhere around the European continent. Here is the junction at the front end of the race, because most of the work has been done by Van den Broek here, as we now are forming at the Tête de la Course a 3-man lead group. Van den Broek, Bertolini and Jérôme Pinault. I have a feeling that the rider in the dark blue jersey there, as we look further back, again attacks coming off the front end of the group, Phil. I have a feeling that Van den Broek will be told by Johan Bruneel just to take a back seat and try and wait for the next section of big hills to come, because I've seen Floyd Landis looking very good here this afternoon, and the youngster I don't think needs to burn up too much of his energy in the break.
They're trying to hold this race together, I think, till we just get towards those last little flurry of hills where they can break the opposition. But this is an interesting escape group that's trying to get away, and it looks as though we've got a Liberty Seguros rider and a Rabobank rider now trying to bridge the gap, and they too have opened a little gap on the field. The most active rider we've seen so far today on Liberty Seguros is Javier Ramirez, so it might be him having another dig. Rabobank, always a great team to have around. I think Eric Decker's in this for a few training miles today because he wants to do a big ride on Sunday in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. We do have the American Levi Leipheimer in the peloton as well, but we haven't seen him yet.
Well, you can see the main field is really only separated from those leaders by a mere 15 seconds, so it can all come back together very quickly after an acceleration on the front end of the peloton. And as we get closer to the next big climb, the Côte de Coutis, I have a feeling we will see a much more controlled approach to the climb there, because this race in the latter part is very much elimination from the rear, because these climbs are short and sharp in this part of Belgium, and riders who are not in the front 15 to 20 riders have a very hard time staying in contact, especially as we get down to the last 40 kilometers. There are 4 big climbs in a period of every 6 miles or so.
Yeah, and you don't think the riders don't know it. Through the S's there, as we watch the peloton in a long, angry, thin line here as they chase for the wheel in front and hope the guy in front knows the right way, because the pressure is really on. We've had a very high average speed today, about 43 kilometers an hour average, but this last hour I think has been even quicker than that. Despite that, the riders have taken advantage. When the pace has dropped, they've jumped away. These are the 3 current leaders. Pinot on the front started it all for the Brioche La Boulangère team, the team which now looks pretty similar to the Domino Vacanzi colours, but I can assure you he's a Frenchman up there. As we now go through the town of Pervez, which means we are around about 51 kilometres now from the finishing line, and not too far away from the situation of the Côte de Coutis. Now, while we're watching pictures here, no Lance Armstrong, of course. As Americans will know, he's riding in the Tour of Georgia, stage 2 today, and stage 1 being won by Gordon Fraser. But that, I think, although Armstrong insists he's there for the training miles and not to win, I bet if Bobby Julich starts winning that race, Paul, we are going to see a real clash of swords.
I think we will see a clash of swords, especially in the individual time trial. Now, this is the counter-attack moving off the front here. This is a young Belgian rider on Rabobank trying to get across there, Kevin de Weert, and he was joined there quite smartly by Elminger, the man from Phonak Hearing Systems, the team that is Tyler Hamilton's new team. And Hamilton I've seen on a number of occasions riding very close to the front end of the peloton. You can see by the fact that they're stretched out into a very long line that the race is really very much on in earnest, as we are now, I would say, 6 kilometers from the next climb of the day, the Côte de Coutis, and that's where 1 or 2 riders are going to throw caution to the wind, because I think we'll see some serious attacks.
Very impressed by this youngster, Jurgen van den Broek. He was an amateur cyclist last year, or elite category without contract, I think they call them these days. But now he's got a big contract. He is an elite rider on one of the world's best teams, US Postal Berry Floor, and he's now got himself up into the early move. It's not that early, of course. We're inside 50 kilometres from the finish, but it is a move which could count later. Igor Kamano of the Euskaltel with the orange jersey just passing through screen there. Paul Sherwen, keep an eye out for our man in the move, which will be Jan Ullrich. I still haven't seen him.
I still haven't seen him, and we've been up and down this main field on several occasions. I think the cameraman is looking for him. There's Chechu Rubiera moving through the field there, and he's a man who very soon will be looking to try and ride well with Lance Armstrong in the big mountains.
So the peloton remains in pursuit of 3 riders. They should catch up. Well, still a slip of gears there. That was a bit unfortunate, because that rider there slipping his gear was Giuseppe Guerini, the man that slipped his gears in spectacular fashion once on top of Alpe d'Huez when Eric the photographer knocked him off his bike, but he still got up and won the stage.
Very lucky, and in fact Eric, the young man who leapt out to take the photograph and in fact was around at his hotel the following day there to apologise, and I think he took it very well indeed. These are the 3 leaders. Jérôme Pinot on the front, joined admirably by Jurgen van den Broek of Belgium and the US Postal Service team, and also the most experienced man in the Blake there, Alessandro Bertolini. Still a very large group of riders here in the Flèche Walloon, and I'm looking earnestly up and down this main field to see if I can catch a glimpse of the big man whose nickname is the Kaiser, Jan Ullrich, because everyone's looking to see if he'll put a performance in here this afternoon. But I'm actually beginning to wonder, Phil, if he's still in the race.
I've got a feeling too that he may have slipped quietly out the back of the race when our cameras weren't looking, and called it a day, thinking of the weekend in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. The Rabobank rider here trying to get away, looked as though it was Kevin de Weert, the Belgian rider from Rabobank, trying to move up there with one of the riders from the Liberty Seguros. And in fact, the Liberty Seguros rider right here at the moment in our camera lens is Angel Vicioso, who's riding pretty well. and Kolobnev, who got 5th in this race last year, trying another move as well. So that's the little chase group that's got itself going just at the moment. OLN's full lineup of cycling coverage will continue on Sunday, April 25th, when we bring you the same-day coverage of Liège-Bastogne-Liège. After winning last year, the American Tyler Hamilton brings his new Phonak team to defend. Catch the same-day coverage Sunday, April 25th at 4 p.m. Eastern, only on OLN. As we search the cottages for sight of the peloton in the 68th Flèche Walloon, a little chase group is trying to develop here in pursuit of Jerome Pino, Jurgen van den Broek and Alessandro Bertolini. One of them is the rider who finished 5th in this race last year, Alexander Kolobnev, and the other one comes from Rabobank, which is Kevin de Weert, and there are 2 others down there as well.
We're picking our way now towards the outskirts of the small town of Coulisses, and once they leave there we will go up the very difficult climb of the Côte de Coulisses. These are the 3 leaders, and Bertolini on the front there from Alessio is looking like a man seriously motivated here this afternoon. This is the youngster, first-year professional, and he will be very excited to be in a breakaway situation like this, and I would think the team manager is trying to calm him down. When you're a first-year professional in a race like the Flèche Walloon and you're in the breakaway at this stage of the game, you start to get just a little bit overexcited, and he needs to calm his nerves, because a lot of difficult climbs are facing up in front of these riders at the moment.
The only American cyclist ever to have won this race, I'll give you one guess, Lance Armstrong. You were going to say that, weren't you, Paul?
I was going to say that.
I
think
thought
it was...
you were. 1996, he's the only American to triumph in this event. He's been a man of the Ardennes over the years with his victories as well around the area. 47 kilometres to go, 13 seconds. The chase group is coming. Here they are. Chance to have a little look at them. The Liberty Seguros rider in this breakaway is the big sprinter. They won't like him being up there, Angel Vicioso.
Well, there is a nice view there, because just in front you've got a glimpse there of the 3 leaders, and the pressure here from the chasers is in fact starting to split the group into 2. You get an idea now just how difficult everybody is grasping to stay in contact with the wheel in front of them. But just going back to that 1996 victory of Lance Armstrong, Phil, it's amazing if you can get a chance to look back at some of those old photographs, how big Lance Armstrong was. And that 1996 victory was pre his cancer, testicular cancer, which he eventually was able to conquer. And the Lance Armstrong we see at the Tour de France now is 10 kilos, 22 pounds lighter than he was on that occasion.
Sort of diet Paul Sherwen should follow, I think.
I'm trying.
There is the field in a long, thin line here, getting a little bit concerned now that 3 are shortly to become 7 leaders. Now there is a rider in there from Phonak. I think it might be Martin Elmiger, but we'll wait for confirmation of that. It won't be long before they're up. In fact, this is the back. Oh, well, we're going down the line of riders here now as our camera gets passed by the peloton. Keep an eye out for the T-Mobile rider. He wears 41 if you can only spot his legs and his frame number. That's what we're looking for. But we have a feeling now that Jan Ullrich is already out of this race, and we haven't spotted him leave it. But we might be wrong, of course.
We might be wrong, but United States is very well represented, of course, with Levi Leipheimer still in the race. Tyler Hamilton, very aggressive about 50, 60 kilometres ago, I think, looking to give himself a fine performance in a race which I think suits him. And of course Floyd Landis, who has a teammate in this leading group at the front. There Jurgen van den Broek, in his first attempt here at the Flèche Walloon, is in a break of 3 riders with just 12 seconds advantage over the main field. These 3 riders are all working very well together. I think the man who sincerely was hoping that they can build up on their advantage is Alessandro Bertolini, who's already got a win under his belt this season. Whereas the man from US Postal Service, I think, is just there to represent the team, to take pressure off Floyd Landis, who I feel certain will be looking to launch an attack a little bit later on.
I wasn't too sure what the tactics were from Kevin de Weert, but he was trying to take the Phonak rider Elminger off the back of that group, or they were both getting pretty tired, or they've sensed there is the capture here right on behind them now. Just 12 seconds, group 2, and then the peloton snapping at the heels, so it's going to come all together. We are just a couple of kilometres from the climb now of the Côte de Coulisses, and then after that they come thick and fast, and I think we'll see a very different Flèche Walloon.
Just an indication here of the kind of roads that this race goes through in the Ardennes. Very similar to the race, the roads that the race will go over on Sunday, the race of Liège-Bastogne-Liège. This is the next climb the riders will face, the Côte de Coutis, followed very smartly by the Côte de Bel-Air, and then the Côte de Boissou, which is a very difficult one. The penultimate climb of the day, the Côte de Benaïn, as it used to be called, is a very difficult climb with 11 kilometres to go, and very often the stepping stone for a breakaway to form before that nasty climb up to the finish. 19% at its steepest part, the Mur de Huy.
This is the first one, just a kilometre to the top now, and 45 to the finishing line. Sharp left here, and then into the little climb of the Côte de Coutis. There's the yellow arrows, familiar arrows if they look at Tour de France arrows, because they are in fact the organisation who runs this race these days is the same organisation as the Tour de France.
Well, Jürgen van den Broek starting this climb now. It's a short climb, just 900 metres in length. It climbs up 63 metres in altitude. 9% at the start at an average of 7.3%, and you can see immediately the difference in the speed as these riders look for a slightly easier gear to try and keep themselves off the front end of the main field. 15 seconds was their advantage, and none of them are looking back to see where the main field is. And rather nice to see the rear end of that jersey there of Jürgen van den Broek, looking as if he's ready to go off into the attack.
Kolobnev, 5th last year, sitting at the back here, looking rather smart and looking as though he's waiting for somebody else to do the work as well. Not sure about Kevin de Weert, got a feeling he's already struggling at this moment. Angel Vicioso, sprinter on the left of our picture, he's doing very well to be up in that group, and there's Elminger who's on very good form. There's the peloton now. They are in fact 31 seconds behind that second group, so they've lost a bit of ground to them, which is a bit of a surprise, I thought, at this stage.
It's a big surprise to me, because they looked as if the pressure was really on in the main field there. As we look at the back here, Carlos Sastre, a man from CSC who will be called upon to ride well in the big stage races, like of course the Tour de France in the month of July. The three leaders are doing an excellent job here, and you get a chance just to see a little bit of the pavement here in the Ardennes. Very rough surface, and it really is not an ideal surface for getting a good rolling movement of the bike. These roads seem to really stick to the outside of the wheels, and it really is very difficult to roll along and pick up a high speed, and a kind of road surface that saps the energy out of the legs over a long period of time like this.
Bertolini, most experienced boy, knows exactly what's required today, knows what lies ahead of him. Here we look at Kevin de Weert.
I think you were right.
Detached, and I think he was getting tired, Paul, because this time Elminger was having none of that. He went in front of him, and he's dropped off the back now, Kevin de Weert. This climb hurting, I think. Even so, it's not that long as they head up towards the summit. There's the top.
Slowly but surely they're pulling themselves towards that leading trio, and if they do make the junction, it will be a 6-man leading group. But you can see the snake at the front end of the main field are really starting to put the pressure on, and still they're not closing in on that gap, which is a bit of a surprise to me, because I had a funny feeling that the main field was really hammering along at a fairly high speed. And when you look at that long line at the front end of the peloton, that does indicate that these men in the group are taking this race very seriously.
This is the chase group. There's Vicioso, very determined man, and he's got good form. He rode well last weekend in the Amstel Gold Race as well, so it looks as though he's been looking forward to the hillier classics. And the other riders in the break, Kolobnev and Elminger. Oh, there's been a crash there, and that looks like it is in fact a rider who's gone down. I think it is Jürgen van den Broek who was in the breakaway. We didn't see it at all. We saw it with you. A helicopter just picking it up. He may have been at the front. I think, Paul, he got a bag in his wheel there. He's just thrown it away.
It could be, because one of the soigneurs is at the side of the road there, handing up a drink for him. We got a chance to see who it was.
It's not Van den Broek, Paul. In fact, it is...
it's Floyd Landis.
It is Floyd Landis, yeah, it is.
Well, I don't know how that happened at all, and it looks like he's a little bit hurt there. His hand is hurt. He's back up and riding, and now there's a bit of a shame. You see how US Postal have let a man drop to the back end of the group there, and the man coming back to look after him to see just exactly what the problem is Chechu Rubiera. He wants to just check and see whether or not he is badly injured, because in the early part of this race I thought Floyd Landis was looking pretty good. And we'll have to see now if he can recover from that nasty fall.
Yeah, I just have the feeling that the team are working for Floyd again today to try and get him a good result. He's had a good result. He won the overall classification and the stage at the Tour de Algarve in Portugal, but that was now way back in February. Well, the race continues. The other man in US Postal, Jürgen van den Broek, is still up with the three leaders. Well, we're all looking down and around and about. I think they must have heard this, a replay of this, that they must have heard the shunt of Landis there. Well, he seems to be okay. He's back in the group as we now rejoin the front runners. Still waiting. Oh, sorry, this is the second group. Now let's see if they can bridge the gap. They're making a meal of this, but there is no longer a Rabobank rider in it.
That was rather a strange crash there off Floyd Landis's field, because it was right at the front end of the main field. He was riding in about 6th or 7th position, and it is interesting that at the front end of the field it was in an area where he was going past one of his team helpers, and I wonder if they were trying to pass up a bottle or a bag at the side of the road, and it would probably have been a slightly illicit manoeuvre, because you're only allowed to feed in dedicated feeding zones.
Correct, and we've finished our 2 zones for the day, and so well, a little bit of the law of the jungle existing there, perhaps. Sorry about the bit of picture wobble, but it seems as though we're settling it down from the helicopter at least, as we're looking down at the bunch, still stringing it out towards the 6 men who are ahead. Well, this is the back here of Martin Elminger. Still can't catch up with the 3 riders in the lead. Floyd Landis back in that peloton with a stinging right arm, I suspect, after that tumble. I think he tried to snatch a feed bag, which might indicate he missed his feed at the second feed zone earlier on. These 3 riders are Kolobnev, Vicioso and Elminger. They're making a meal of catching up, though, with the 3 leaders, which are still Jurgen van den Broek, Alessandro and Bertolini and Jérôme Pinault.
We'll get a chance here to look at the riders moving through the town of Haltine, and this is around about 40 kilometres to go, and that would indicate they're about 2 or 3 kilometres away now from the next climb of the day, the Côte de Bel Air, which is why you can see them starting to group across the front end of the main field. And I'm pretty surprised that that 3-man counter-attack is now starting to lose ground on the 3 leaders, and I would think that would indicate that Alessandro Bertolini is the man who's putting the majority of the pace into that. He is the most experienced bike rider in the group, and has already showed that he's had a fair amount of success this season with a win in the Giro di Luca, and he is obviously the one trying to fire up those other riders with him.
Well, as you can see from our helicopter, 1 or 2 riders trying to slip away as well off the front of the peloton. That is where the 2 motorcyclists are, more or less the front of the actual big pack of riders. Ahead is Kolobnev, Vicioso, Elminger, and then we should be able to pick up Van den Broek, Bertolini and Pinault. And here they are, these are the 3 leaders. They are just a kilometre or 2 now from the next climb. As we look down on yet another beautiful moated chateau here. This is the Chateau d'Altine, here in the province of Namur. See, France isn't the only country that's got big chateaus. Belgium can boast 1 or 2 rather nice ones as well. We're not too far away, of course, from Luxembourg here, that Grand Duchy, very small principality that nestles in the middle of Europe.
These are the 3 leaders. Sitting in the back now, Jurgen van den Broek, first-year professional bike rider, just 21 years of age, and I would think starting to feel quite excited about being in a race like this, because for a Belgian to be in a breakaway in one of the great Ardennes classics is a real touch of pride to a man's career. Now, the Côte de Bel Air is 14% at the beginning of the climb. It's an average gradient of just 8%, but it's now starting to kick in. Let's not forget that these riders, Phil, have been in the saddle for around about 4 hours, and the legs are starting to twinge at the start of the season, because it really is rather a cool day out here as well, at not just much above 15 degrees Celsius.
So we're on the climb of the Côte de Bel Air now. 3 boys are still clear, but surely the field is going to wrap in a little bit here, because they're all closing down. There's the capture of 3 and 3. Working very hard at the front there is Alessandro Bertolini and Jurgen van den Broek. These boys all doing their bit. 6 riders still clear. We've caught the 2 in between. Saiko showing signs of coming back into the action.
Looks like Levi Leipheimer moving up there as well into second position.
Could be. It's a little crouched figure of Levi. Yes, it is. I think you might find his Popovic just behind him. Had a big dig in the Amstel Gold Race. Looked good to win for a while, didn't it, if you were watching it? But he was brought back, and then he finished way down. They really did make him pay for the effort.
These climbs now are starting to get very difficult. The leading 6 are just going through 1 kilometre to go to the summit. And you can see how narrow and difficult these forest roads are in the Ardennes. And Jurgen van den Broek has recovered to pull himself back onto this leading group of 6. And he's probably now going to take a back seat for a while, because he realises when these guys start to kick the turbo in on these climbs, it really does hurt.
Well, the peloton are still labouring, though, to form a combination that might finish off this the breakaway. Remember, it was around 60 kilometres to go when Pinot started the move. He was very happy to see the arrival of Van den Broek and Bertolini, I'm sure of that. But here we are now. He's been away for half of the distance to the finish. He's just on 30 kilometres left to ride now. And there is the field, still looking rather big just at the minute. Levi Leipheimer, good to see him in that position in second place, to be honest. That's a good indicator. He's finding his legs. He's had a good start to the year, because remember, he was so unlucky in that first road race stage of the Tour de France when he broke his leg in that horrendous pile-up, but already had a win this year in Setmana Catalana, which is a race in Spain.
It was one of the most difficult stages he won too, the stage which is nicknamed
the
Etapa Arena, the queen of stages, the big mountain stage, and that moved him very high up in the overall classification. I think this year he has to prove himself with Rabobank, because he's been signed on as a leader of the team, and when you don't put a performance in at the Tour de France and you're the team leader, the management tend to look down and say, well, come on, we're paying you a lot of money to be present. And I think he'll have to try and make sure that he keeps his form through until July. Pity that he went out of the Tour last year on that very first road stage in a nasty accident that took a lot of serious men out of the event, including one man who I thought would not start the following day, Tyler Hamilton, who got up and finished the Tour in 4th position with a double fracture to the collarbone.
Yeah, that was the remarkable thing of last year, I'm pretty sure. That, and he'll be here, the Balearic Island rider here, trying to get clear of the field now. Leaving it a bit late to split this field up. This race can and often is won by a surprise attack that catches everybody off their guard as we go over the top. He nearly came over the top of our camera just then. We were so close we couldn't even see his number. But there we are. I might get a better glimpse of it now. Well, there's the breakaway, so they're not that far ahead, are they? And this is a good chance to try and bridge the gap, because this is Jose Ivan Gutierrez who is on the move to get across. He's a good sprinter as well. So Vicioso will know all about him if he gets across. And I think he will, but you know, the peloton are not that far behind now, and all of a sudden we could be one big bunch in just a moment. Looking through the trees there, it looked as though Bertolini was trying to put in a little bit of a move to try and reactivate that breakaway, because it looks to me as though it's losing its actual momentum.
Just goes to show how quickly the main field can close down a gap like that. It was 40 seconds at the start of this climb, just 3.4 kilometers, and they close it down as soon as they decided to put the acceleration on at the front end. I think the number of riders in this group has been somewhat reduced as well, as we now face up to the final 2 climbs of the day. The next climb they will face is in around about 15 kilometers time, and that's the climb of the climb of Benain, as it used to be called, and that's 11 kilometers to go to the finish. And then there's the big mother at the end, the Mur de Huy, which the riders will go up for the 3rd time, and that is a nasty one.
It's going to be a spectacle if all this lot arrive at the base together, which I can't believe it, but right now it is looking a little bit likely. Attack going here from Euskadi Euskadi, one of the tall riders on the race. Samuel Sanchez would be a good guess, I would think, here, on good form just now.
Not too much of an advantage though, only about 40 or 50 meters. Everybody now becoming very attentive. It's always a strange race, the Flèche Walloon, because we very often get to this part of the race with a group of 40 or 50 riders, and you say, well, I think it's going to be a bunch sprint by the time we get to the end, and somehow or another there's always a group of 10 or 15 riders tend to get away on the Côte d'Ain towards the end, and this man is trying to fracture the front end of the peloton, hoping that a group of 5 or 6 riders will join him. Actually looks very much as if it might be Sammy Sanchez who's looking to get the breakaway. He's had very good form since the start of this season, and this is what he's after. He wants this group of riders to come off the front end of the main field and join him, and then they can start to build on something.
Well, he's got his wish now. Can they split up the field here? 27 kilometers only to go to the finish, about 16 miles to race. I can't believe that they're going to take this peloton down to the base of the Huy, but you never can tell. The way the races are, the Spring Classics this year have been a little bit different to previous years. Been quite interesting, in fact. A lot of new faces trying to burst onto the block. This is another rider now trying to get across from the front of the bunch.
Looks like
not the riders we expected, though, Paul, to be making the move. The big boys are, they'd like to win, but they don't want to expend the energy because of the upcoming Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
That's the strange thing about the Flèche Walloon. Everybody wants to try and win this race because it's an important classic. It's got a long history behind it. But the big names like Bartley, like Tyler Hamilton, like Levi Leipheimer want to win it without expending too much energy, because they have to race a 265-kilometre race in just 3 days' time, Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
And such a hilly race. It's a piece of cake going down to Bastogne, but it's an awfully hard ride back.
Well, it's downhill all the way to the turn, and then all the climbs are thrown up in the riders' faces. This looks very much like the shape of Eric Decker trying to ride off the front.
Well, if it is, I'll be very surprised. I've just got a feeling Eric wants to hide, get the miles in, but it certainly looks like him. I'm not sure. There could be Mark Lotz, of course. Some good riders in here showing good legs from the Amstel Gold Race.
This is Decker, and he says, get out of the way, please, because I'm coming by. You could just glimpse the red,
Can't
white and
contain
blue.
his enthusiasm when he's got good form, can he?
Red, white and blue on his shoulder there, just indicating he's a former Dutch national champion. And as you can see, they're not going to let him ride off the front quite that easily, because he's a serious contender if he can get himself a 30 or 40-second advantage.
So Decker trying to counter the move of 7 riders up ahead as we go into the last 25 kilometres of the day. Looking at Eric Decker here now at 26 kilometres from the finish. The 7 riders swept up just moments ago over the climb. Decker, seeing the catch, has decided that it is time to have a tentative himself. I must say I'm rather surprised. Decker says he's got great form just now. Absolutely surprising himself after 2 lost years.
There's a crash.
There's been a fall on that bend. There was, yeah. And
that won't affect this
man, though. I wonder if
though.
our camera's seen it, because he's not gone back there, but there certainly was something happened.
There was a crash just coming into the corner there, probably a touch of brakes, and somebody panicked, and about 4 or 5 riders went down. Eric Decker has had a long comeback, Phil, from that crash that he had in Milan-San Remo back in 2002, and it's been a long battle for him to get himself back to the top end of the sport. He's a great bike rider. I remember seeing him win 3 stages in a single Tour de France one year, when most people said that he wasn't capable because he didn't have a sprint. He won 1 in a sprint, he won 1 on his own, and 1 from a breakaway.
I can remember the headline, Triple Decker.
Triple Decker. He's a great bike rider.
But he's, after he had his problem with his knee, trained and came back too quickly, then he had a knee problem, and he's really lost 2 years out of his career at the most crucial stage of his career, which is a great shame. Licking his lips here, Gianni Fadersin from Italy, pacing steadily. Gerolsteiner on a high.
Well, Gianni Fadersin's a rider who's ridden well in the Flèche Walloon before, and we haven't actually seen him over the last couple of seasons, but he's a very solid professional. This is the back end of the race. We'll get a chance to see just exactly who went down there.
Is it? No.
This is, in fact, Francisco Ventoso who went down there.
Yes, he just probably got caught in that ditch there.
No, it's not. It's actually Nico Seymans.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't look very comfortable at all, and it was just a touch of wheels at the back end of the group when he went down. And I don't think he'll be getting up to finish Flèche Walloon here this afternoon.
He was the winner of the Grand Prix Pino Cerami, poor old Nico, just before the Paris-Roubaix. Sadly for him, he won't be winning Flèche Walloon today, but he doesn't look too bad. And he's got himself on television. Up with the leader now, Eric Decker, trying to make the escape of the year, this, if it pulls it off, and he's just the man that could do it. He's a bit of an expert at this. He tried and looked good in the Amstel Gold Race, then he got caught, and in the end got caught out. The only race he's won this year was in his hometown, and that was a place to win just a couple of weeks ago in Drenthe in Holland, and that was when he said he has the really total surprise over the way he's riding. Hope he doesn't use too much energy, because he has said also he wants to do a great Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
Well, he's putting the pressure on everybody else here. You see he's forcing Gerolsteiner to come to the front end of the main field, and they really are picking up the pace. As you can see, Eric Decker now is starting to go downhill slightly as they head down towards the valley before they kick up then to the climb of the Benain.
Well, this is the first attack by, let's say, a nominated winner, if you like, today, and Decker is trying to hammer it home if he can. The last Dutchman, by the way, to win Flèche Walloon was Joop Zoetemelk back in 1976, which I find absolutely amazing, but true.
It's amazing to think that the Dutch have been so competitive in this bike race, and this is the kind of race that suits riders like, of course, Michael Bogert, Eric Decker, but it's a race that very often has been dominated by some other nations like the United States back in 1996, and like Spain last year when they got their first ever victory with Igor Astroloa, who's not defending his title here this afternoon because his team has suspended competition while they make internal investigations into a doping scandal and to see just how involved certain members of the team have been.
big figure there of Decker sitting astride his steed and trying to drive it on now towards the finish of Huy. Big obstacles still lie ahead. We're in the home province now of the Finnish town, Liège, as we race towards Ahan and the Côte d'Ahan himself, which is a tough little springboard, been used many times by the stars to leap away to victory. One of the ones that springs to mind is 3 times winner Moreno Argentin, who's now retired, the Italian, always used to dominate the races here.
King of the Ardennes Classics for many years, and certainly enjoyed winning this when a couple of years ago when he was riding for the Gavis team. He led the team to a 1-2-3 domination, and third on that occasion was a youngster on the way up, a Russian rider by the name of Evgeny Berzin, who went on to win the Giro d'Italia.
Russian, only the second Russian rider ever to win that race. So all hands on deck now, or is it all hands on Decker? Because that's the way it's looking as Decker goes for home in the Flèche Walloon. 22 kilometres to go. It's not far in kilometres, but the road's a little bit undulating.
Well, in fact, if you could jump into a helicopter and get to the finish line, we're probably only about 4 miles away as the crow flies to the summit of the climb of the Mur de Huy. But the organisation here dragged the race and the bike riders over another nasty little climb before we get there, the Côte de Benaïn. This is the main field, and only one man on the front is doing all of the pacemaking, and that's Gianni Farazin, who's been a professional since 1988. That's an awful long time. He's only had 13 wins in his career, but he's been very consistent at races like the Giro d'Italia, where he's finished in the top 20 on a number of occasions.
Not a tricky right-hander. I'm not staying to see if anybody falls off there like poor old Nico Simons just did. Decker's really on a roll right now, though, because the peloton seems to be leaving all of the work to that one rider from Gerolsteiner and nobody willing to take up the chase. Perhaps they're now piling all of the gamble on that one little climb of Ahan, trying to rip away from the field so they can get on working and the chase down. Once you're over Ahan, you're on the way down to Huy. And I think if Decker can hold, what, 30 seconds over the top, he's got a chance.
You can lose 30 seconds on the
final
climb up to the top of the Mur de Huy. But Eric Decker, I think, has actually played a very clever tactical move here, because he's not one of the super favourites for this bike race. He's not one of the big names who we expected before the start to be a winner of the race, and he's gambling now on a little bit of marking going on between the other riders in the event. Riders like David Rebellin, who is being looked after there by his teammate Gianni Farazin, who's whipping up the pace, because they don't want Eric Decker to get too big of an advantage before we go to the next climb of the day.
Well, Decker's never had a great result in this event, but there's a possibility now as we head down to the valley and the River Meuse, which lies directly ahead of us. There's the peloton, still quite a large bunch of cyclists down there. We have not seen hide nor hair of Jan Ulrich. We only have the start sheet to confirm, in fact, he's even started the race, but we do believe that to be the case.
Well, that is apparently the case. We certainly have not seen him at all in the bike race, and everyone says that he needs to do something. And Decker nearly lost it going around that corner. He's taking big risks right now because he's only got a small advantage, but as he's on his own, he can go around these corners and completely flat out and try and build himself up an advantage over the main field. These roads here, Phil, in Flèche Walloon, very reminiscent of the roads in the Amstel Gold Race, a race that he's always excelled in.
34 joined the Olympic Games this year, Eric Decker. Let's hope he gets a ride, because he could land the gold medal, and that would be a superb 34th birthday present for him. 17 seconds the gap, 20 kilometres still to ride to the finish, and the peloton not really coordinated yet. There's the remaining climb, really, the Côte d'Ahan, because after that the other climb is waiting for you at the finish. And I think if he can get to the bottom with a little bit in hand, he'd be inspired enough to make a great run up the Mur de Huy.
Another man I haven't seen very much of over the last few kilometres is Frank van den Broeke, who around about 60 kilometres to go was very aggressive at the front end of the main field. A lot of the big names came forward at that point as if they were trying to fracture the main field into some kind of breakaway. Then I think most of them have taken a back seat over the last couple of races.
Watching the main field here. Still Gerolsteiner leading the charge. The peloton still undecided on the 68th Flèche Walloon what to do about Eric Decker of Holland. No Dutchman has won this race since 1976, and Eric Decker is still on his own, and he's scarpered and he's going for gold here. He still has the climb to come of the Côte d'Han. Once over the top of that, then he's got a real chance. As we now look at Decker, and the great advantage is, of course, he's in the back streets here, he's in the lanes, and they can't see him. And that's most probably in his favour now, more than that of the peloton.
Just adjusting his Velcro strap there on his shoe to keep it as tight as possible. He'll take some serious risks going down this hill because he knows he's got to try and build himself up at least a 30-second advantage before he starts the Côte de Benaïn. And this road is a very tricky road. It's very much demolished by the winter frost and snow as he drops down to what he knows will be the start of the very strategic climb of the Benaïn, and I'm sure we'll see some of the big names come to the front and start to launch the attacks.
The magic of Paul Sherwen's voice. They've resurfaced the road as he told us how bad it was. We're now on good surface again for Eric Decker as he winds through the woods here, heading towards the climb, which could well decide the race today. If he can continue his progress there, I don't think they'll catch him. Decker's a great descender. He's got a nice descent down to the River Meuse, and then let's hope he can find his special climbing legs with inspiration to the finish. He will be a very, very worthy winner right now, and would finally lay to rest the ghost of Joop Zoetemelk, who won back in 1976. But of course, Joopie was a great bike rider on this sort of a course. There is Decker, looks very cool. He's been saying a lot about how well he's riding, and the riders read everything as we do. They know how well he's riding, and he's ridden away from them right now, wiped out that break of 6, and he's still on his own and looking cool.
I tell you what, he's such a professional bike rider. You see that little gesture there when he just made this sign with his thumb? That was to indicate to the motorbike cameraman that he was moving over to the left-hand side. He wanted the motorbike to get out of the way because he wanted to move across to the left-hand side. He's switching across here. He's looking for a small amount of shelter from the wind. And there is Frank van den Broeke, who we mentioned earlier. He's moved himself up into 5th or 6th position. So these guys now know, Phil, that we're moving to the very strategic climb of the Benaïn. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get a move coming from van den Broeke.
Frank's actually very content with his form. He's had no results, but he has got good form, he says. Luck hasn't exactly been running for him. Flat tyres at the wrong time, etc. And this is the sort of race that Frank would like to excel in. He's done it before. As we now see Decker looking rather cool here, riding like a winner. The question is, will he be one? Another photograph for Graham Watson by the look of it there.
Just see the yellow neutral service vehicle moving in behind him, so that gap must have extended itself to around about the 30-second mark, and still there is only one rider on the front doing the majority of the pacemaking. It's all being left up to the Gerolsteiner, Gianni Farazin, and moving up into second was Jaroslav Popovic. As everybody now there is van den Broeke, looking calm and collected. He was a winner a couple of years ago of Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and this is the sort of finish that would suit van den Broeke. He's got the explosive acceleration in his legs. We saw that on the final stages of Paris-Nice this year when he really did start to look like a serious challenger for the One Classics. Tyler Hamilton should be in this group. I've seen a lot of him. Floyd Landis was just moving up on the left-hand side there. He wants to be in position for the Côte de Benaïn. And of course, Levi Leipheimer, you can just see the orange jersey there. He's been put now into a defensive role because he's got a team leader off the front end of the race.
That's right, and that might not be a bad thing right now, because these boys are planning on the assault of the roads not too far off the shoulder here of Decker, and that's in Liège-Bastogne-Liège on Sunday. We've not seen, by the way, anything of Jan Ullrich, who may not even be in the race right now. Well, we're looking here to the magic of television, down to the River Meuse. There's the peloton. That's a very nice mix, and flying out the sky is Eric Decker. Here's the peloton looking across at each other. Don't look to me as though they're doing enough right now. There's a lot of infighting going on here. This is Eric Decker leading Flèche Walloon at the moment, and he's leading it into the last 14 miles or so. As we look at the main field, now trying to get on turns, but they don't seem to be as coordinated. Certainly there are 3 Americans riding well down there. Levi Leipheimer is one of them. For Rabobank, for Phonak it's Tyler Hamilton, and for US Postal it's Floyd Landis. They're all in with a shout.
all very much in with a shout. Two riders have not had any problems at all, but Floyd Landis had a nasty accident just a few kilometres ago, and that may well have shaken him up a bit. I did see the team getting around, rallying around him to get him back to the front end of the main field. But if they want to win Flèche Walloon here this afternoon, they're going to have to catch this lone leader. Eric Decker, I think, has really put the cat amongst the pigeons here, because nobody really wants to put the hammer down and chase them. Now we can see the organisation. There on the front is the organisation of US Postal Service. Chechu Rubiera, the unbelievable lieutenant for Lance Armstrong in the month of July, is turning out to be the super domestique here for Floyd Landis, who's just there in third position.
Well, this might be the change now, and this could be under the impetus now. They've told Floyd Landis to stand by because it's time to go out and try and reel in Eric Decker. This is the bridge, if you like, now to the final climb out on the course before the descent back down to the river and up towards the finish in Huy. And if Postal are starting to drive en masse, that doesn't all well for Decker, because this peloton hasn't really been organised in this chase, and they've allowed this man a bit of a lead. We don't know what that lead is because we haven't been told, but there is the details of the Côte d'Arhan. 2.6 kilometres. This is more than a little steady climb at 10%, 1 in 10. Eric Decker now knows that if he's got a lead of about 35-40 seconds at the top, he has a chance of winning this race.
Well, the gap had gone up to around about 30 seconds because you could just see the referees' cars had gone in behind him, and now the fact is they're pulling them out because we're all now waiting for the big attacks to come here on the Côte de Benaïn. It's a long climb at almost 2.5 kilometres, a couple of sections at 10%. There's Floyd Landis there on the left-hand side, looking very comfortable. Two teammates up alongside him to steer him to what could possibly be an attack towards the summit of this climb. One of them is Chechu Rubiera. Trying to look a little bit further back to see who else is in attendance. I wouldn't be surprised to see Alexander Vinokourov not too far away from the front.
He's been very evident as well, and we know he's riding well, but he may not want to just give that extra energy. Just slipping off the back there, Jurgen van den Broek. He's had a great ride today. What a promise he is. He's not gone yet either. A junior world champion 3 years ago, now riding his first season with US Postal. Had a wonderful race today. This is the face of the leader, though, Eric Decker. Those rocking shoulders there. Little look over his shoulders to see if he can see them. I don't think he'll see them. He's got a reasonable lead on the climb. As reaction comes from the field, MrBookmaker.com, I think it is. Might be Quick Step as they start the climb. And it looks like Postal, it looks like Chechu Rubiera is tagged on to his back wheel.
That is Chechu moving across there. And there's no reaction at the front end of the main field, and it really is rather interesting to see the development in this race here, because some of these riders certainly are not quite ready to launch the attacks. I think the attacks from the big names will come as we get to the final kilometre of this climb.
It looks like Jurgen van Gulen of Quick Step, who may have been the man sent forward to set the pace here. Chechu also knows now they must drive on. They've let one of the strong men go who's told the world how well he's racing this year. He's as surprised as everybody else after his bad knee and his broken leg these past 2 years. But right now, he's enjoying life again as a top bike rider. And Rabobank have had a marvellous season this season. And so when you've got good morale in the team, results can just happen.
This is the back end of the field. There's Gianni Farazin in the light blue jersey. His job done for the day as he slips away from the back end of the peloton. These guys have, many of them, done big work as domestiques to try and bring the race back together, and they will not be seeing the front end of the race at the summit of the Mur de Huy. There's a lot of attacks starting to develop now.
Still haven't seen Ulrich either, so we're beginning to reach the conclusion he's retired from the race.
Decker's being joined.
Yes, Decker's just caught back now, so it wasn't that far. Now this, if he can hang on, because this still could be a decision time. Now, this is a telecom rider who's making his way up here. He's one of the tall riders, so it could be Andreas Kloden. And in fact, it is Kloden who's gone clear.
That's
the man
amazing.
That you said was finished, Paul.
I didn't say it was finished. I said he's been looking around for a couple of years since he won Paris-Nice. Everyone thought he was going to be the next big star, and he's had a very hard time coming back up to the top end of his form. And here is Danilo De Luca as well joining this breakaway.
Now De Luca so near yet so far from winning the Amstel Gold Race, but he knows now he's got a bit of good form coming in those legs. So Danilo De Luca. Now here's another candidate here for a possible win. And Kloden, remember his bronze medal in Sydney 2000 at the Olympic Games. He knows he's got the strength on the finishing climbs. And this looks though Philippe Gilbert. I'm not sure where he is, but I think he's losing ground here.
I think he's losing ground when you look at that kind of style there. But coming back to what I said about Clodin, you know, since that 2000 year when he was so good at the Olympic Games and he won Paris-Nice, he hasn't actually won a bike race since then. And he's been really stumbling around to try and get himself to the back end of the top end of this sport.
Gianpaolo Caruso is the Liberty Seguros rider, who's also got himself into this rather little workmanlike group. And to complete the foursome here at the moment, then we've got Scarponi. Now Scarponi is having a wonderful season just now. We've always fancied him, but this season he's coming good. He's had 4 wins already.
Now then, this is more serious, because number 47 there, just tagging onto the back in the pink jersey, was Alexander Vinokourov, a winner of 3 stages of Paris-Nice. Look at the way he's looking over his shoulders. He's seen this small break forming off the front end of the race. He's leapt across the gap very nicely, thank you very much. And he's looking calm and collected. This is a great bike rider, reads a race very well. He has the ability to ride across a gap when everybody else is absolutely on the rivet.
Oh, I think Caruso's on the rivet as we speak right now. This is Andreas Clodin who's coming along, and De Luca, who gets the privilege of wearing number 1, because although his team won last year, the winner, Igor Astaloa, the world champion, isn't here, as we've already said. But there's nothing in this right now, and we could well be bringing forward 10 or 15 riders by the top of this climb to decide this year's Flèche Walloon. Just 11 kilometres to go. The last couple are all uphill, and there's still about 1 more kilometre of climbing here too. There's the split in the field now. The strong men will out on this climb.
Ouch, it's starting to hurt. There's the counter-attack. That looks like Alexander Vinokourov has gone straight over the top of the group there. Immediately joined there by Danilo De Luca. As we can see, this race is really starting to put pain into the legs of a lot of these bike riders. The leader here of Euskaltel Euskadi for the day, David Etxebarria.
He's just on the back end.
He's been very good here at Flèche Walloon in the past as well.
Samuel Sanchez, the rider, just in front of him there. It's squeezed through the gaps here now, guys, as they scrabble for the wheels. Marcel Strauss, Gerolsteiner also there. And I think it was Kim Kirken from Luxembourg. Not very far, probably one of the shortest drives home tonight into a foreign country, if that's where he's staying. There's the groups now split into groups as we try now to establish the new leading group in this year's Flèche Walloon, and Alexander Vinokourov is right up amongst it. And we're looking at a lone leader escaping here. Samuel Sanchez looks like his tall legs. Now trying to get clear of the field. That's a strong man's ride for you, to ride off the front of a group that just split the peloton into 3 bunches.
A lot of these riders now under serious pressure. We're inside 10 kilometres to go from the summit here of the climb of the Côte de Benaïn. They will drop down towards the valley of the Meuse. And then they face up to the very difficult, nasty ascent, the final ascent of the Mur de Huy, which the riders have already been up twice.
So Samuel Sanchez, a rider who is doing a typical move for Sanchez, to ride away from the field when they are all under pressure and try and hold them off. As he now continues with about 10 kilometres left to ride, long flat road for the moment, then we'll drop down a little bit onto the riverside. There's 2 chasers down there just now. And that includes T-Mobile's Guerini, I think. As the riders in Flèche Walloon make the left-hand turn, the group has more or less come back together. It's been a scramble, but this one man has just got clear, Samuel Sanchez of Euskaltel Euskadi, and there's 2 more coming up to him.
Alexander Vinokourov in the pink there, and it looks as if they're going to be joined there by one of the riders from Fassa Bortolo, and he's been very aggressive. And it's Kim Kirken who's coming across, and he's a man who over the start of this season has really proven, I think, to be a new revelation. And here's Axel Merckx.
And there's the first time we've seen Axel in front of our television cameras this season. Axel Merckx on the back wheel of David Etxebarria. And the other rider there from US Postal is the leader of the team today, Jose Acevedo, new man on the squad. We saw him ride. He was up amongst the front runners in the Amstel Gold last week, so his form is coming nicely. Floyd Land is gritting his teeth. Still, all of these riders are very much in the action here. And number 51, David Rebellin, the man who won Amstel Gold, still here as well and could still win.
Well, he's ridden a very clever race. There's Floyd Landis, looking very comfortable. He's not got too much to do here. He needs to just sit back and see how the race develops. But they do need to pull back these three leaders. Alexander Vinokourov, Kim Kirkjan there from the blue and white jersey of Fassa Bortolo. And just getting on the back there as well, Sammy Sanchez. Looking down this long list of riders where we've seen Floyd Landis and Levi Leipheimer, but for the last 10 or 15 kilometres I haven't seen anything of the green and yellow jersey of the Phonak man, Tyler Hamilton.
Well, like Jan Ulrich, I think he's disappeared. And it could be they are thinking of bigger fish to fry on Sunday. Both riders have not been in front of our camera lens in Ulrich's case at all today. Tyler we did see riding pretty strongly at the head of the bunch until we hit this final big 98-kilometre circuit. I think he may have decided he'd done his miles for the day. But there's the peloton. Interesting now, three good teams have got three riders up front. That means a lot of good riders are no longer going to chase here. Kim Kirkjan has his moments in the world of cycling, continues to develop as a great bike rider. He's a Luxembourger. I've got too many of them in Luxembourg. He finished 4th in the Tour of Switzerland last year and he won Paris-Brussels. So he knows what it's like to win these smaller classic races, and he'll be a hard man to beat, but then again so too will Vinokourov.
Well, that three-man group I thought was looking like a very serious contention for the win this afternoon, but if you can just see, the group is slowly but surely starting to claw them back. Somebody has come out on the counter-attack and is halfway across the gap, and that has really put the fire into the wood pile here, because your man in the orange jersey, Sammy Sanchez, has decided now's the time to try and go it alone. Everybody here is absolutely scrambling to try and get a slight advantage over anybody else before they start the final big climb of the day, the Mur de Huy. There's the remnants of the group, which has certainly been reduced in numbers, but for the Flèche Walloon it's still a pretty big group.
It is a very big group, and still all of them in contention here. If they can organise a chase back, it still could be all hands for themselves as they climb the Mur de Huy. This is the back of that leading bunch now. All of these riders, the only riders left in with a chance of winning the 68th Flèche Walloon. Remember, up front, Sanchez, Vinokourov and Kirkjan. Vinokourov, I think, has to be our favourite, Paul, if this stays away.
If it stays away, but I think it's going to all come back together. In fact, in all of the confusion, the big attack by Eric Decker was very rapidly nullified just towards the summit of that climb when they started to turn up the gas on the Côte de Benaïn. In fact, it is all back together, although one man has about a 15-metre advantage on for the front end of the group. We're now looking at a group of around about 35 riders who are now looking to see if they can spot the 5 kilometre to go sign.
Well, looking through the trees there, these are the three original leaders, not quite all together, because there's the peloton still looking for them, and the pressure being applied at the front end to try and stop them catching up. Good testing roads. This is the way down now. Nasty left-hander coming up. Here it is, full hairpin bend this one. Sanchez goes round. They do it well. Keep the pressure on. 6 kilometres to go. We've got a kilometre or so down the hill to the river. Then it's a scarper across the river, and then it's a couple of kilometres up the hill. So we've got about 3 kilometres of flat left now. Totally flat road before we climb to the finish. Vinokourov, who's never had a podium finish in this event, he's done plenty of good luck in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but he's never had a podium finish in this event now, and somebody is crossing the gap.
Well, it's a red jersey. It may well be one of the Saiko riders, and if it is, I would expect that to be Danilo De Luca, but it's not, unfortunately.
It's Celestino. Now there's another man for the classics.
A good move by him. He's looked at this. He's tried to pull the team along to try and get Danilo De Luca into a position to try and get himself a good position. He's had a good start to the season, but I don't think he will cooperate in a situation like this, because he'll try and leave the advantage to De Luca.
Well, Celestino loves the classics. He's had a 4th in Liège-Bastogne-Liège a couple of years ago, but he is a rider now who could really do very well in here.
Christian Moreni, he too is a man who was a very aggressive bike rider. He's managed to get himself halfway across the gap. They're looking to try and pull this race all back together, and they certainly will have to do that in the next kilometre or so.
These were the 3 original riders. They've now been strengthened, plus Celestino, and that is a real bonus for them, because he will drive on. There's 3, 6, 7 riders down there, and the peloton.
Everybody's really scrambling. You have to, at this point, all of these riders now realise they're in with a very good chance of taking the victory. Christian Moreni here of Alessio is halfway across the gap to the leading 4 men.
7th in 2002, so he likes the finish. He knows what he can do. He's got confidence. Celestino straight to the front here. Vinokurov knows him well, will welcome his strength over this last couple of kilometres of flat road. He feels as though if he doesn't make this work, then it's goodbye to any podium finish today. Totally committed at this point. They can't take any time out now. They've got to keep going.
The big advantage of being in a breakaway like this is you don't have the confusion at the bottom of the climb. If that race comes in as a group of 30 or 40 riders at the bottom of the Mur de Huy for the final time, it is so very confusing. I think Christian Moreni had a slight problem with his gearing there. He just backpedaled to try and jump it up a gear. He's just about 50 metres off the back of that leading group of 4. But he will actually act as a carrot to the main field, who will be chasing his wheel as he's chasing these riders. So it could still very much come all back together for the final ascent.
If he gets on again, another lump of strength has hit the front. But there's the peloton doing the bridge here. Moreni is the carrot, and the peloton looks a little bit smaller now, but there's still plenty of riders down there. This is Christian Moreni. Alessio's had a very good race today, especially they had Bertolini in that long breakaway with Van den Broek as well as Pinot. But this is Moreni as he makes it's just dangling off the front there. You can see him by that motorbike. But this whole field looks as though it will come together in the last couple of kilometres of racing. These are the 4 leaders, 4 very strong men, especially at this stage of a big race. All of them winners. But I'm not sure they're going to be a winner today.
These men are committed now, though. They've got to give everything. They've put a lot of energy into this breakaway, and if they sit up and wait for the main field, they won't have all of that much explosive energy left in their legs. And you can see that it's being dragged back together as we come into the outskirts of the Mur de Huy. There are the 4 leaders. They're in Huy now, and the main field is 10 metres off the back wheel.
Little over 2 kilometres then before the finishing line, and most of that's going to be uphill once we pass the town side. So we're not too far away now. We're coming in off the hills of the Ardennes, racing back into Huy. Remember, each time we come into town, different routes so far, because of 3 different visits to the hill. Well, we will have in a moment when we climb it for the last time. And the breakaway looks as though they're going to be, well, they have all together. And there goes an attack on the left of our picture. I thought it was a US postal, but in fact, I don't think it is. I think it might be, you know. That looks like Floyd Landis.
Vinokurov was very attentive, and he just immediately leapt across the side of the road there to make sure he could get onto the wheel of the man who was attacking. And it looks as if it could very well have been the shape of Floyd Landis.
Put himself in the right position for the climb. Well, how long is it since we've seen a bunch of this size go on to the final climb of the Huy?
Very long time since we've seen a large group of riders, which is almost 40 strong, coming through the outskirts, and it's going to be very precarious to try and stay at the front end. And as this road kicks up, you've got to be in the first 10 or 15 places. You can see the line of light blue jerseys there. That is Gerolsteiner. They're trying to set it up for David Rebellin, who's had a very easy race, and this is the right kind of finish for him, especially after his win last weekend in the Amstel Gold Race.
Celestino is bringing them to the foot of the Mur de Huy. But there's every man for himself now. We are going to be treated to a real battle of the wall this time as they try. It looks like Frank van den Broek about 6th or 7th down on the right. He'll fancy his chances at 1 kilometre to go. Christian Moreni is still at the front, and Rebellin is looking for the double.
Well, Axel Merckx moving on the left-hand side in the red and white jersey. He's going to accelerate. He wants to be first to the bottom here of the Mur de Huy, and they've got to respond immediately to this. And you can see the light blue jersey of Gerolsteiner are really having to dig 1.4 kilometres in length this climb. And I tell you what, it kicks up at 19%. It is a vicious climb halfway up.
Well, 1 in 5 in old money as they try now to tackle the Mur de Huy. It is anybody's fight for the top. It would be a good time for Jan Ullrich to put in a first appearance, but I don't think that is going to be the case.
I don't think we'll see him here this afternoon, but you will see Andreas Kloden there on the front, and he's decided he's going to try and grapple his way back to the top end of the sport. He hasn't had a victory since 2000, when he had a fabulous season. Since then, he's been running around in the doldrums, and it looks very much as if Alexander Vinokurov has actually recovered quite a bit too, because he's there in 4th place.
We're relying on the pacemaking here from T-Mobile as Vinokurov tries to do something back there. Is he still anybody's race? This looks like Andreas Kloden again is making the move. Danilo De Luca is there. Now Oscar Freire is here somewhere, just tucked in the Rabobank colours in 4th place. David Rebellin looks as though he's right there. This is going to be an interesting move. Now Oscar Freire winning will be a real turnover, but Vinokurov trying to go with that forward party of some 8 or 9 riders.
There's Floyd Landis just going round. You can see what damage this final ascent here up to the summit of the Mur de Huy does to a peloton. There were 40 riders in strength here as we got to the bottom. And there is Tyler Hamilton. He is in the group, but not really all that aggressive and explosive. But I think it's an indication that he's going to be a man to look after in the Liège-Bastogne-Liège at the weekend.
But no sign at all of Jan Ullrich. He's not in this leading group, so somewhere along the road today he's turned home for the changing rooms. We continue the climb to the finish with it still being anybody's race. This is Kessler leading the way up the front as he continues now to, and Danilo De Luca grits his teeth and kicks, and this is Danilo De Luca gone. He's taking with him now the Gerolsteiner Devil Rebellin. Rebellin is on terrific form, remember, because he took the Amstel Gold Race, first win since he won the San Sebastian World Cup event in 1996. And now Danilo De Luca trying to give Seiko a good end to the spring season, because they've had not anything like the comparison to last year. But remember, they won this race a year ago with Igor Astaloa. Now it's Rebellin, and this is Deja Vu with the Amstel Gold Race, one-on-one with another rider. And again, Rebellin is judging an uphill finish the best, as Rebellin's going to make it 2 wins. He can't do a thing wrong right now. David Rebellin gets the victory again. Danilo De Luca takes second place, and Kessler is holding on for third.
Well, that was a superbly timed move there by David Rebellin. Also coming up towards the line here, Alexander Vinokourov has held off after being in the breakaway, and there's Frank van den Broek too, got to get himself a top 10 finish. Amazing move there by David Rebellin. As we see, looks like Manuel Beltran from US Postal Service coming in. He'll finish well inside of the top 15, but that was a good move by Rebellin. Calm and collected. A man can sprint like that when he's had a big win under his belt, because he's so much more relaxed.
Well, he gambled all day on that happening. A big group finish on the hill here. There's Floyd Landis coming in now for a time at 41 seconds.
Well, David Rebellin certainly timed his sprint to perfection. This man, Phil, for many, many years has promised to be a serious star at the top end of the sport. He's had some very good wins throughout his career. This makes it win number 37 this afternoon. He turned professional back in 1992, so he's been a pro for 12 years now, as we can see the remnants of the main field starting to come home in what has been a very difficult final 20 or 30 kilometres. There was just a quick glimpse of Didier Roos, the French national champion, coming in. These riders were riders who were dropped on the final climb. As you can just see here, this acceleration. Danilo De Luca went far too early, and he started to crack just a little bit towards the end. You can see De Luca there just starting to close the gate, but he knew he couldn't do it too much, because otherwise the judges might have got a little bit annoyed by him moving off his line and boxing in Rebellin. But Rebellin had absolutely superb acceleration, and he was the strong man of the race, but he did gamble on being in the group that came together at the bottom of the Mur de Huy, and he hasn't used that much energy when we think about what's coming up for him in 4 days' time.
So as we see, another victory for David Rebellin, a podium finish for the first time for him in Flèche Walloon. He's finished 4th and 6th in this race in the past. Now he is the winner, his second classic race in just 4 days.
David, félicitations, hein. Personne n'avait jamais réussi à gagner et l'Amstel Gold Race et la Flèche Walloon. Fantastique.
Ah oui, pour moi aussi,
Yes, I've got absolutely superb condition at the moment, and I was in a big day. I said today I was going to have an easy race and see what happened at the end, and I thought if I could be with the leaders at the end, I'd try and win, and that's how it worked. You've showed a very good demonstration in the climb up to the summit here, but Danilo De Luca went out pretty quickly. I know that he was very strong, and I got straight onto his wheel, and then in the last 100 meters I knew I had a little bit left in my legs. With your legs here this afternoon, can you win Liège-Bastogne-Liège? Yes, now everyone's going to put their eyes onto me now, and that's quite normal. The way I've ridden at these last races, these are the races that I do prefer, and with this condition that I've got at the moment, I probably can win, and it'd be important to try and get some World Cup points.
Well, there's the result. David Rebellin gets the victory over Danilo De Luca. Matthias Kessler in 3rd place. Scarponi He's coming to form, was fourth. Vinokurov rode a good race, but in the end was fifth. Same can be said for Andreas Clouden. Frank Vandenbroek taking seventh on the line, and Manuel Beltran completing the top 10 for US Post Hilaire. Further down the list, Popovic in 14th place. Watch out for him on Sunday in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Rick Verbrugge, he's won this race in the past. He finished 18th. Top 20 completed by Jose Ivan Gutierrez. So there we are, David Rebellin, he wins the Amstel Gold, he now wins the Flèche Walloon. Will he make it 3 and take Liège-Bastogne-Liège? Well, that's another video. Until the next time, for Paul Sherwen, I'm Phil Liggett saying so long.